It's hard to believe that the era of the original Nintendo Switch is coming to a close. In some ways it feels like it was just yesterday that the Switch was the hot new thing, but at other times it seems like an entire lifetime has come and gone for me since then. So much has changed in the years since this console was released, and the Switch was a huge part of my life throughout all of it. So today I want to take a look back at all the time I spent with this console, from the beginning in 2017 to where we are now, with the Nintendo Switch 2 right around the corner. This isn't going to be an objective retrospective on the Switch, since talking about every notable game that was released on this console would be nearly impossible. So instead I'm choosing to keep it casual and just go over my own personal timeline with the Switch and not try to cover everything. The games I played, the big announcements I remember the most, and all my favorite memories from the past 8 years. I won't be talking about every single Switch game I played, it'll just be the big ones that I remember the most. I'll also be using a whole lot of screenshots and videos I took using the Switch's capture button, so when you see this border it means I'm using captures I took during that time, and unfortunately they're not very high quality. This is an inherently very personal video, and I'll probably end up reflecting on my YouTube channel itself here and there. I have no idea if all these personal stories will be interesting to anyone, and it's totally fine if they aren't. This is just kind of my way of cementing these memories in video form so they aren't lost to time. So sit back, relax, and join me as I look back on my time with the Nintendo Switch. Leading up to the announcement of the Nintendo Switch, it felt like the internet was flooded with rumors all about the NX. I had a Wii and Wii U, but I had never been on the gaming side of the internet in the months leading up to a new console announcement, so this was all a totally new experience for me. I had just started to consistently watch YouTube videos about Splatoon and Zelda U, which had recently been properly revealed as Breath of the Wild. Nintendo and video games as a whole were pretty much a strictly single-player experience for me in my childhood, so figuring out that there were tons of people who cared about the same weird stuff I did was super exciting. It was around this time in 2016 when I was really starting to get hooked into the online Nintendo community, just in time for stuff to start heating up around the NX. I remember the same fake images everyone else does, and I believed pretty much all of them were real. I mean, it says confidential property on it, so it has to be real. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the first time I was tapped into the conversation around every important moment throughout a console's entire life cycle. I was on the hype train from day one and stayed on for the whole journey. I'm actually thankful I wasn't really too involved during the Wii U days, as I had way more fun with that console not knowing that it was a huge failure. After months of speculation, rumors, and a few more fake images, that magical day in late October finally came when Nintendo teased the announcement of the NX the next morning, and I could barely sleep, I was so excited. Watching that initial reveal trailer early the next day and all the reactions to it was when it really felt like there was a special energy getting started, and that carried through all the way to launch. This trailer had all these genius little teases of games that hadn't been revealed yet, creating tons of speculation and hype. It was also such a sudden shift in tone compared to the marketing style of the Wii U, making it feel like a fresh new thing. The Wii U was basically dead and buried at this point, and everyone was totally focused on the future. Then finally 2017 arrived. '2017 started off with the incredible January Nintendo Switch presentation, which is probably one of, if not my favorite presentations Nintendo has ever done. Tons of new info about the Switch, massive game announcements like Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, Xenoblade 2, and ending the showcase with an absolutely legendary trailer for Breath of the Wild that shook me to my core and revealed that it would be a launch title. After this event, my excitement levels for the Switch went through the roof, and the next month and a half were full of me watching as many Nintendo videos as I could. I watched every one of CND's daily vlogs of him waiting a month to be the first to get the Switch, and I started researching everything about this console like it was my job. March 3rd finally came around and I didn't get one. Yeah, I actually didn't get the Switch at launch, as in my family we pretty much only got gifts for Christmas or birthdays. But I had saved up enough lawn mowing money to buy Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, which I played non-stop. I think the only way I stayed sane throughout all of the excitement that I couldn't be a part of was because technically I was playing and loving Breath of the Wild just like everyone else. This game pretty much took over my life completely, and it's still to this day my favorite video game experience I've ever had. It was that perfect storm of a game releasing at the exact right time in my life to make it something truly amazing. And yes, I played it on the Wii U, but it's still relevant. It would be a few months before I could get a Switch for myself on my birthday. But luckily I didn't feel too left out since the big new release after launch was Mario Kart, which I kind of already had on Wii U. Those 4 months between launch and me getting a Switch seemed like an eternity to me, as it felt like I was watching the coolest party in the world through the windows outside in the cold. Even though I didn't have a Switch yet, I eagerly anticipated Nintendo's E3 spotlight. I remember thinking it was the greatest E3 showing of all time, although I didn't actually know what a Metroid Prime was yet. Reggie was at the peak of his memeability, there was a new Kirby, Yoshi, Breath of the Wild DLC, some guy talking about Pokemon, and a strange crossover between Mario and Rabbids. But the highlight of the show was Mario Odyssey. It looked like the perfect Mario game, bursting with creative and positive energy. I couldn't wait to play it. It's hard to describe just how much excitement was in the air at this time. Every new Nintendo announcement felt like the hype train was just picking up more and more speed. My birthday couldn't come soon enough, but it ended up being a lot harder than I thought it would be to actually get a Switch. My parents weren't willing to spend that much money for one gift, as our birthdays were usually limited to around $100. After saving up for a while and selling my 2DS and a few of my games on eBay, which I still deeply regret doing but whatever, it's fine, I finally had enough money combined with my birthday budget to afford the Switch. The next step was actually finding one, which was a challenge. The Switch was out of stock pretty much everywhere, and it took a few weeks of hunting before I was finally able to secure one thanks to my local GameStop holding one for me. I remember being disappointed that the box was damaged, but it was so hard to find one that I didn't care too much. I had finally found a Switch, but it was still about 2 weeks until my birthday, so I didn't get to actually open it yet since my parents paid for part of it. Holding the Switch box in my hands that I knew I couldn't open yet was like a form of torture. My birthday eventually came around, and I was finally able to unbox my Switch and start using it. I got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which felt like a whole new game since it was now portable. My family was in the middle of moving at the time, so the Switch's portability really came in handy during that time of my life. But the thing I was most excited for was that there was a Splatoon 2 global premiere demo that was open on the night of my birthday itself, which felt like a personal gift from Nintendo themselves. I mean, the Splatfest was even vaguely birthday themed, being cake versus ice cream. When they announced the demo during the Splatoon 2 Direct, I was incredibly excited when I realized that I would actually get to play it since I'd have my Switch by then. I demanded that the TV and couch not be moved out of our old house until after my birthday, so I could play Splatoon 2 for the first time on a TV. Since it was my birthday, I didn't have to help move any of the boxes or anything. So that night I got to sit in a mostly empty room that only had a couch and a TV in it and fight for Team Ice Cream while my family was out moving stuff. It's strangely one of my happiest memories with the Switch. Sadly, the Splatfest had to end, but I made sure to have enough money left over to get Splatoon 2 off of Amazon. I had it pre-ordered like 2 months in advance, since I knew it would release shortly after my birthday. I was a huge fan of Splatoon on Wii U and couldn't wait for its sequel. But Amazon screwed up their stock or something, so I didn't get my copy until a week and a half later. Even though I finally had a Switch, I was still stuck on the sidelines while everyone else online was celebrating the new release. I specifically remember walking by the games section of Walmart and seeing that they had multiple copies of Splatoon 2 behind the glass and feeling like I was the unluckiest person in the world. Once my copy arrived, I immediately sunk a ton of hours into the game. In some ways, Splatoon 2 felt like my first proper Switch game, since I played Breath of the Wild on Wii U and Mario Kart was just an extra fancy port. That time spent in between moving houses when I played Splatoon 2 non-stop was a magical time. The uncomfortable realities of changing high schools hadn't set in yet. It was just a fun summer full of free time with my Switch and Splatoon 2. It was somewhere around this time that I started thinking about creating YouTube videos about Nintendo. The name I initially chose was Hyrule Hero, because at the end of Breath of the Wild Zelda says,
"The hero of Hyrule."
But I quickly realized that I wouldn't be able to post any Splatoon stuff if my online persona was exclusively focused on Zelda. So I expanded to focus on Nintendo in general and rebranded to Nintendo Hero and made a basic profile picture, which is somehow still the same name and logo style I'm using all these years later. But aside from a few trailer edits and a compilation video of my favorite Nintendo songs, it never went anywhere until a few years later. Once we finally finished moving and I started at a new school surrounded by unfamiliar faces and lots of anxiety, Nintendo was one of the only things that still felt comfortable and familiar for me. Splatoon 2 is pretty much the main game I played for a few months, but I was already making sure I had enough money to buy Mario Odyssey at the end of October. There was a September Direct that talked a whole lot about Xenoblade, which I was sure I'd never be able to get into. The most exciting part for me was all the new info on Odyssey. The games I played during this time included Minecraft Switch Edition, because I guess I just love buying games I already played on Wii U, Wonder Boy and the Dragon's Trap, which has an absolutely gorgeous 2D animated art style, Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which was surprisingly good considering how annoying the rabbits can be, and Stardew Valley, which is the game I played the most when I wasn't playing Splatoon or Zelda. And then the big one finally arrived, Super Mario Odyssey. At long last I was able to be part of the exciting new release alongside everyone else, and oh man was this game good. It was the biggest, most creative and exciting feeling Mario game I'd ever experienced. It became the only thing I played for a while as I worked my way up to collecting all 999 moons. I had gotten a Pro Controller just a few weeks before this game came out, which made it feel even smoother and more next-gen. This was the third time in 1 year that I was completely blown away by a new game release, and I spent almost the entire rest of the year enjoying this masterpiece. Strangely, the moments of Mario Odyssey I remember the most all these years later aren't its coolest high-energy moments, but the quiet ambience in between searching for moons. That's what takes me back to 2017 the most. On Black Friday, I convinced my parents to buy me the Explorer's Edition of Breath of the Wild in exchange for one less present at Christmas, so I could play the upcoming Champions Ballad DLC on the Switch instead of on my boring Wii U. For some reason, I loved getting Switch games that I'd already played before. I had already completed all 120 shrines on Wii U, and I spent the rest of the year trying to get all 120 shrines all over again along with enjoying the Champions Ballad. The fact that it launched on the same night as the Game Awards where Breath of the Wild won Game of the Year made for an incredible final moment. 2017 was something really special. It firmly established my personal big three in terms of Nintendo franchises, being Zelda, Mario, and Splatoon. Breath of the Wild ended up not only being my favorite Zelda game, but my favorite game of all time, Splatoon 2 is still my favorite entry in the series, and Mario Odyssey is my second favorite Mario game behind my irrational nostalgia-blind love of Galaxy. Getting huge series-defining entries for both Mario and Zelda in the same year that a new exciting console released is something that will probably never happen again. Of course, there were plenty of other great Switch games from this year that added to the exciting atmosphere that I couldn't afford. So for me, it's these three games that cemented 2017 as the greatest gaming year of my life. Oh yeah, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That game was pretty cool too. I'm sure I won't have quite as much to say about the rest of the years of the Switch's lifespan, as this was the one that really set up the console for its eventual huge success. "2018 started off with a Direct Mini, announcing a new Mario Tennis game, Celeste and Dark Souls on Switch, a Luigi's Balloon World side mode for Odyssey, and a few Wii U ports. Tropical Freeze being $10 more expensive than it was on Wii U was one of the first big examples of the Switch tax that we're all pretty familiar with by now. I spent the first few months of 2018 enjoying the incredible games from the previous year, but it only took until March for another big, earth-shattering announcement that changed the internet forever. Which, of course, was the incredible reveal trailer of the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2. I mean, this trailer pulled me right back into my Splatoon obsession, which I thought I was finally leaving behind me. Let's see here, what else happened? Undertale on Switch, Captain Toad port, oh yeah, and Smash Bros. For Switch got announced. Joking aside, this is easily one of the best reveal trailers of all time. The slow, mysterious build-up of the Smash Ball reflecting in this Inkling's eye is one of the highlights of the entire generation. This reveal is still super effective all these years later. Smash hype basically dominated Nintendo discussion for the rest of the year. I remember so many people thinking it would just be an upgraded port of Smash for Wii U, since Nintendo was obviously big into the port business at the time. I actually went back and played a decent amount of Smash 4 to try and help pass the time before Smash for Switch arrived. Other than that, the first half of my year was mostly spent playing the big three from 2017. I finished all the shrines in Zelda, got really into ranked battles in Splatoon, and finally got all the moons in Odyssey. This moon where you have to do a whole bunch of perfect long jumps in a row took me forever, and I did that thing where you avoid using the Odyssey to travel around and only use paintings instead, which made this my final time adding moons to my total count. Next up was Nintendo's E3 showcase for 2018, which gave us more beautiful Reggie moments, a new Mario Party, Fortnite, Hollow Knight, and Fire Emblem Three Houses. But Smash was the big focus, now officially titled Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, with an amazing trailer revealing that every previous fighter from the series would be returning. Ultimate looked so good that I still remember this as one of the most exciting E3s, even though it was pretty light in terms of big new announcements. I can't think of any other game that would have been able to hold the spotlight all by itself in the Switch's second year as well as this game did. Ridley was a great reveal to end on, and a remake of Metroid 2 on 3DS was announced during a Treehouse livestream, which was weird but made this a decent show for the starving Metroid fans. Right after E3 wrapped up, there was the Splatoon 2 World Championships, where it was revealed that the Octo expansion DLC would drop the next day. I love these sorts of surprise reveal moments so much. Of course, I spent the next few weeks experiencing one of the greatest single-player experiences Nintendo has ever made, and it's still the absolute peak of Splatoon. I love Smash Ultimate, but Octo Expansion was my personal favorite Nintendo release of 2018. That week in early June that had Nintendo's E3 showcase and the Octo Expansion made for a fantastic start to the summer. Alongside my scheduled doses of Splatoon 2 matches, I started playing a few other online games as well. As much as I'm ashamed to admit it, most of the rest of my year was spent playing Rocket League and Fortnite. I put way more hours into these two games than I should have, and I really got into ranked Rocket League matches. For a few months I started watching more tips and tricks videos about Rocket League than Nintendo content. Both of these games had addicting item collecting gameplay loops that I hadn't really been exposed to before. I had no tolerance built up for these monetization tactics, so loot boxes and battle passes took up a lot of my limited income, which I think happened to a lot of people this year. I still have some fondness for the early times in both of these games, but seeing where they've ended up now confirms to me that I made the right choice to stop playing them after this year. But as much as I kind of regret the hours I poured into these games looking back, they taught me what to avoid in the next years of my life. So in that way I think they were still important experiences. It wasn't all bad though. In between grinding online matches, I got really into Stardew Valley and SteamWorld Dig 2, both terrific games that I love very much. Of course there was a Nintendo Direct in September, which announced Nintendo Switch Online, meaning everyone would have to pay to play games online now. But at least it was pretty cheap and came with some NES games. Luigi's Mansion 3 working title got revealed, and for some reason the original Luigi's Mansion got a remake on the 3DS. This was one of the last Directs that still had a whole bunch of 3DS stuff in it, and it seemed like no one cared about any of it by that point. There was another deluxe Wii U port, a big Splatoon 2 update, and the Direct ended with the dual announcement of not only Isabelle as a fighter in Smash Ultimate, but also the casual announcement of a full new mainline entry in the Animal Crossing series on Switch. This was a roller coaster of emotions, going from extreme excitement to mild disappointment that it's just a Smash character, then the best of both worlds when Tom Nook showed up to confirm the big one. Animal Crossing felt like one of the last really big franchises that needed to show up on the Switch, so this was a big deal. December finally rolled around, which meant one thing. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate became the new game I was obsessed with. The early hours of Ultimate were so great, where your initial fighter roster is tiny and you have to unlock all of them one by one. Inkling's moveset was exactly what I was hoping it would be, and they quickly became my main. The World of Light campaign was kind of lame, but the core gameplay of Smash is so great that I enjoyed it anyways. I've never been able to get as into Smash as a lot of other people do, but Ultimate was definitely the most Smash Bros. Focused I've ever been. After getting used to Smash for Wii U, this one felt so much faster and snappier, and it easily became my new favorite fighting game. To finish off the year I got Starlink Battle for Atlas and Rayman Legends Definitive Edition for Christmas. I am a certified Starlink defender, and I basically tricked myself into thinking I was playing a giant open-world Star Fox game. It suffers from the same repetitive objectives that most Ubisoft games have, but the ability to seamlessly travel from a planet to space was so impressive to me that I didn't really care how weak the gameplay loops were. I don't remember a single thing about the story of this game though. I couldn't tell you any of these characters' names. Then there was Rayman Legends, which I actually never played on Wii U, so this was my first time playing one of the best 2D platformers of all time. I got really into the demo of this game earlier in the year, and the full game more than lived up to my expectations. I was especially impressed with the music-focused levels. Overall, 2018 was a decent year for the Switch, which was ultimately saved by Smash Bros. Pun intended. I spent a lot of my year playing Rocket League and Fortnite, and when combined with the abundance of Wii U ports, this year isn't really one of my favorites. But in terms of announcements and Smash hype, it was still a great time to be a part of the Nintendo community. Aside from Ultimate, most of my favorite gaming memories from this year were from Splatoon 2, Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, and Stardew Valley. 2017 was such a strong year that its greatness carried over well into this year for me. I didn't really play any of the other big Switch games this year, like Kirby Star Allies or Nintendo Cardboard. I played a lot of the Mario Tennis Aces demo when it was open, but didn't get the full game until later. I have a soft spot for 2019. I don't know if it's because this was the first year I started making YouTube videos, or because this was the last year before the apocalypse started, but I look back on this year very fondly. It didn't start off very well though, as the first major thing that happened was Metroid Prime 4 getting scrapped and restarting development entirely. Of course, this was a huge disappointment, but everyone took solace in the fact that it wasn't cancelled entirely and was now being handed back over to Retro Studios. I think this thumbnail from Arlo sums it up pretty well. Like most other years, 2019 had a Nintendo Direct in February, announcing Mario Maker 2, Tetris 99, Astral Chain, and a remake of Link's Awakening. A solid start to the year that promised a lot of great game releases. Soon after the Direct, Reggie announced that he was retiring from his position as the president of Nintendo of America, and it was pretty sad to see him leave the company. He always brought such a fun energy to every presentation he showed up in, and with both him and Iwata gone, Nintendo definitely wouldn't feel the same. I spent the first few months of this year finishing up Starlink, Rayman Legends, and I started a third playthrough of Breath of the Wild for some reason. Then I played Celeste, which was an incredible experience. I was pretty late to the party with this one since it released in early 2018, but this game blew me away with its music, visuals, and difficulty. One of the best indie games on the system alongside Stardew Valley for me. I also played a whole bunch of old NES games on Switch Online, and enjoyed the messy masterpiece that is Go Vacation. In May, I started seriously trying to get my YouTube channel started. I messed around with my logo until I landed on something I liked, and started putting together a script for a predictions video for Nintendo's E3 that year. I recorded and edited the video using my brother's mic and laptop, and since I had no real editing experience outside of iMovie, it turned out pretty rough. I'm not proud of most of the videos I made this year, to be honest, but I'm also sort of nostalgic for these super early YouTube days when I was making stuff for no other reason than because I felt like it. Rewatching these videos does cause me physical pain though. Of course, the next big event was Nintendo's E3 Direct, which was such a great showcase. The highlights for me were the proper reveal of Animal Crossing for Switch, now known as New Horizons, 2 new Smash fighters, one of them being Banjo-Kazooie, a new Mario and Sonic, and the big one, a sequel to Breath of the Wild getting revealed to be in development. My Breath of the Wild obsessed self freaked out at this final announcement, and New Horizons looked like the perfect HD Animal Crossing, even though it got delayed out of 2019. This was really the last proper E3 that ever happened, and I think it was a solid one to go out on. Cadence of Hyrule launched soon after E3, and it was super cool to see an indie rhythm game be allowed to use the Zelda IP. I don't know how well randomly generated maps work in a 2D Zelda game, but the music and sprite work were great and the gameplay was very satisfying. Later that month, Mario Maker 2 came out, so I spent my time enjoying the story mode and playing a whole bunch of user-created levels. I think this is a great game, but it wasn't able to keep me coming back the way other Switch games did, which is fine, and I know that a lot of people loved this one way more than I did. Maybe if it had the World Maker at launch, I would have been more likely to put more time into it. A month after E3, the Nintendo Switch Lite was announced out of nowhere, which was exciting since this was the first new piece of hardware to be introduced into the Switch line of consoles. I never ended up getting one myself, but my sister got one later on to play Animal Crossing, so I got to see what it's like, and it's a great little mini version of the normal Switch. You thought I was done talking about Splatoon 2, but nope, because in July the Final Fest happened, which was an incredibly climactic finale for this game. The special stage that had hyper bombs landing all over the place with Pearl showing up in the center of the stage while Fly Octo Fly played was the peak of online Splatoon matches on the Switch for me. I was Team Chaos, which I still agree with from a theoretical standpoint, but I could admit that Order probably would have made Splatoon 3 a more interesting game aesthetically speaking. But Team Chaos ended up winning thanks to me and me alone, meaning my long journey with this game finally came to an end. Well, not really, since I still played it pretty consistently over the following years, grinding my way up to S rank in all the modes, but you get the point. I spent the next few months playing a whole bunch of stuff. More Breath of the Wild, I finally got the Tropical Freeze port and loved it of course, played through A Link to the Past and the first 2 Zelda games for the first time, and had a really good time with New Super Lucky's Tale, which is a charming 3D platformer with a lot of heart. I also got my first and only Nintendo Labo kit. It was pretty fun to build, but the VR itself was kind of rough. The Switch was obviously not meant for this, so I guess it was impressive that it worked at all. A few games supported the headset, but I couldn't play any of them for more than a few minutes before my head started hurting. In September there was another Nintendo Direct, which was the first major Switch showcase that left me feeling pretty disappointed. Link's Awakening and New Horizons looked great, but there were no new game reveals that got me excited since the final announcement being a Xenoblade Chronicles remaster meant nothing to me at the time. I even started to resent Xenoblade a bit since I didn't get the hype and thought it looked weird. But don't worry, I saw the light eventually. In the final months of the year I played Link's Awakening, Pokemon Sword, and Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. Link's Awakening was a delightful remake of a Zelda game I'd never played before, and it instantly won me over with its unique story and strange characters. The music and visuals were phenomenal. I got Pokemon Sword just because it seemed like the big Nintendo game everyone was playing at the time, and while I had a pretty good time with it, it still wasn't able to turn me into a Pokemon fan. Easily my favorite part of the game was its soundtrack, as pretty much the only reason I kept progressing was because I wanted to hear the next town's music. Of the two Pokemon games I had played up to that point, being Pokemon Sun and Sword, I preferred Sun with its tropical locations and atmosphere. Then there's Monster Boy, which is a spiritual successor to Wonder Boy and one of the most underappreciated indies on the Switch in my opinion. It's a terrific 2D platforming action-adventure game with a gorgeous art style and great music, and I wish more people would have given it a chance. Between this game and the Wonder Boy remake I played in 2017, I was quickly becoming a fan of this series. I missed out on a few big games from this year that I didn't play until later on, like Luigi's Mansion 3, Astral Chain, and Ring Fit Adventure. And there were also games that I still haven't played like Fire Emblem Three Houses and Yoshi's Crafted World. But while I didn't play a ton of new Switch games in 2019, it still felt like a huge year for me. My YouTube channel had finally become a reality, and I made a few videos that were modest successes. I think I had a few hundred subs at this point, and I remember thinking it was crazy that that many people had subscribed to me. I spent almost all of my winter break making a video where I ranked all the years in Nintendo's past decade, which while I had no idea what I was talking about, it was still a fun project to work on. This year had so many exciting announcements and some really great games as well, and I was sure 2020 would be an amazing year with nothing bad or unexpected in it at all. "2020 was a strange year for me, because of course it was horrible in some ways just like it was for everyone else, but I also have a lot of fond memories of the games I played this year, and my channel started really taking off as well. The year started off with an Animal Crossing Direct, focused on showing off a whole bunch of new information about New Horizons. Every single new thing I learned about this game made me more and more excited. I made a video covering all the new information about New Horizons, which was my first really successful video, pushing me over 1,000 subscribers. There was so much excitement around this game, and it captured the attention of the casual market in a way that the Switch hadn't really done yet up to that point, or at least not to this extent. Just a few weeks before New Horizons launched, the world was shut down because of you-know-what, meaning I had all the free time in the world to enjoy the new Animal Crossing. This game dominated my life in a way that no other game had since Breath of the Wild. The early hours of New Horizons were something special. Building your island up from scratch and slowly making progress each day is by far the best part of the game. I remember being so sick and tired of that song that plays on repeat constantly during the first few weeks until you unlock the normal hourly songs, but now I listen to it and strangely want to go back to those times. It's a weird thing, because the pandemic was a pretty terrible time overall, but New Horizons was able to give me so many great memories when nothing else in my life was able to. While my opinion of it has sort of gone down over time unfortunately, I'll be forever grateful to New Horizons for being there for me when it felt like no one else was. I have more screenshots of this game than any other by far, and it truly felt like everyone in the world was playing this game at the time. Suddenly this series blew up in popularity, and quickly became one of Nintendo's most recognizable franchises. March had a Direct Mini that announced Clubhouse games, half revealed a new Smash Fighter, and that's about it. Believe it or not, I did actually play a few other games during the first few months of the pandemic aside from Animal Crossing, including the incredible Katana Zero, a Ninjala beta that was pretty much just a worse version of Splatoon, and I binged the first Bioshock game after getting my wisdom teeth removed. Mashed potatoes, applesauce, and Rapture go surprisingly well together. In May, a new Paper Mario game got announced with a sudden trailer reveal, which was like a drop of water in a vast desert of Nintendo news. Or maybe I was just really bored. Nintendo announced stuff in very strange ways during the pandemic, which is obviously very understandable, but there was a lot of doom and gloom about the classic Nintendo Direct never making a comeback. This was my first time seeing the Paper Mario discourse machine start up. Turns out people take this series very seriously. I had only ever played Color Splash before this one, so I had no idea what everyone was talking about for the most part. After many more hours of playing New Horizons, Origami King released in mid-July, and I had an absolute blast with it. The huge connected world felt like a massive step up from the level select structure of the previous game, and the writing and music were top-notch as well. There are so many great jokes in this game, and the soundtrack is genuinely one of my favorites on the Switch, so it's a shame that the core battling gameplay becomes incredibly unfun and tedious by the end of the game. I'd still say I enjoyed it overall though. After beating Origami King, I spent some time playing the 2017 crew again, aimlessly running around Hyrule, beating Odyssey again and taking a bunch of photos, and enjoying the Splatfest since Splatoon 2 that came back for some reason. Then I got A Short Hike, which was an incredibly fun open-air indie game that helped me stay sane in the 5th month of lockdown. Nintendo finally announced a bunch of stuff with the 35th anniversary Direct for Super Mario, revealing a 3D World port, Super Mario 35, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, and the long-rumored collection of 3D Mario games, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. While it was disappointing how straightforward the ports of these games looked, the fact that they were releasing in just 2 weeks helped distract from that. Just a few days after the Mario Direct, a new Hyrule Warriors game was announced suddenly, which looked pretty solid and had the potential to have a really great story that leads into Breath of the Wild. Ori and the Will of the Wisps got ported to Switch, which I'd already played on Xbox but still enjoyed replaying since that game is a masterpiece. Then 3D All-Stars arrived, and it was fine. Just fine. It was cool to see these important games on Switch, and I had a lot of fun with them, but it didn't really leave much of a lasting impact. Steve got announced for Smash, which was amazing. Super Mario 35 was a ton of fun up until Nintendo murdered it. Age of Calamity was enjoyable on the surface, but seriously messed up the story and annoyed me in pretty much every possible way by the end, and of course I kept playing New Horizons throughout all of this. The 2 big fall releases for Nintendo that year both let me down in a lot of ways, which helped me realize that I had become way too emotionally invested in the new products of a video game company. Although let's be real, I totally still am. Around Thanksgiving and into the rest of December, a video I made about Woohoo Island started exploding in popularity out of nowhere. When I originally posted it in July, it didn't get very many views, and I have no idea why or how it gained so much momentum so suddenly. My channel quickly hit 5 and then 10k subscribers over just a few weeks. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm decided that everyone just had to know about the history of Woohoo Island, and reading the thousands of comments that poured in helped me survive those late winter pandemic months of 2020. This video was and will probably always be the peak of my channel in terms of views, and it was an amazing and bizarre way to close out the year. I didn't think I really deserved all this sudden YouTube success, but somehow I lucked into it and was very thankful for it. I know this isn't really related to the Nintendo Switch directly, but it would feel weird not to mention it since it was such an important thing that happened to me during this year, and it kind of feels like the foundation that the rest of my channel was built on. And the last game I played in 2020 was Spiritfarer, which felt like a breath of fresh air that once again helped me stay sane. This game's soundtrack is like medicine for the soul. Aside from New Horizons, which obviously dominated this year for me, indies were really what I enjoyed the most in 2020. And with that, this strange, amazing, and horrible year finally came to an end. After welcoming in the new year with Animal Crossing, I started 2021 by buying Ring Fit Adventure, which ended up being one of the games I played the most consistently over the next few years. I actually really love this game. It's one of my favorite new ideas that Nintendo came up with this generation. It has this super upbeat and positive energy that instantly puts me in a good mood whenever I play it, and I stuck with the game even longer than Animal Crossing since I didn't beat it until August of 2024, and I still play it every once in a while to this day. Splatoon 2 had its actual last Splatfest, and I got sucked into the world of Monster Hunter with the demo for Monster Hunter Rise. I had never been so invested in a free demo before, and hunting Mizutsune became my new goal in life for like a week straight. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury released in February, and of course I spent all of my early hours in Lake Lapcat since I'd already played the base game on Wii U. This extra add-on was a surprisingly innovative 3D Mario experience, with it being an open world with no downtime at all. The seamless transition between areas by using Plessy to travel around was genius, and I 100%ed this game in just a few days. It felt like the Mario team was testing the waters with their ideas for the next big 3D Mario game, and we still have yet to see how this game will influence whatever comes next. Oh yeah, and the giant Bowser fights were pretty cool too. And then it finally happened. After almost a year and a half of no general Nintendo Directs, one was announced for February 17th. This was such an exciting Direct because it felt like we were finally moving out of the depths of the pandemic and back into some normalcy. The big bombshell announcement was Splatoon 3, which of course I was super excited for. There was also Skyward Sword HD in place of news on the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Mies made a comeback with a remaster of Miitopia from the 3DS, a new Mario Golf game, and Pyra and Mythra in Smash Ultimate. Not the greatest Switch Direct, but it felt like it was after the Direct Minis of 2020. In late March, Monster Hunter Rise launched, which I picked up on day one thanks to the demo. As someone who had never played a mainline Monster Hunter game before, I was instantly hooked on the core hunting loop. There was so much depth to the gameplay that even after 50 hours I felt like I'd only scratched the surface of what this game had to offer. It's a terrific game that I have a lot more to say about, but I'll leave it there for now. In April I played Super Metroid for the first time on the SNES Switch Online app, which was my first time playing a Metroid game that wasn't in Nintendo Land. Then I picked up new Pokemon Snap, which unfortunately became the second Pokemon game on Switch that I couldn't really get into. I don't think this game is bad at all. It just wasn't able to appeal to me personally, and I dropped it pretty quickly. I probably shouldn't have bought this one at full price. June brought another Nintendo E3 Direct, although this year E3 was all digital, so it wasn't quite the same. But there were still some great reveals, including Metroid Dread, the sequel to Breath of the Wild finally showing up again after 2 years, a new Mario Party, WarioWare Get It Together, and an Advance Wars remake. While Zelda looked amazing, Metroid Dread was easily the best announcement, being the long-awaited return to the 2D Metroid storyline that hadn't gotten a new game since 2002. After loving Super Metroid and seeing all the hype for Dread, I decided to play through all of the 2D Metroid games, which I quickly realized I should have done way sooner as I loved all of them. Later that month, Mario Golf Super Rush came out, and it was a pretty big letdown. I mean, this game does have its moments here and there with a decently fun story mode, but overall it's a bit of an unpolished mess. And at least for me, it fundamentally misunderstood what's so appealing about video game golfing: the chill and relaxing atmosphere. I do not like this game very much, but somehow it isn't even the worst Mario sports game to come out on Switch. Around this time there were tons of rumors and leaks about the Switch Pro, and on July 6th it all finally manifested into the Switch OLED. No performance enhancements of any kind, just a bigger and more colorful screen. Not super exciting for me since I rarely used handheld mode, but hey, at least that means I don't have to buy it and give Nintendo any more of my money, right? So anyway, then I bought Skyward Sword HD and the special Hylian Shield Joy-Con since my original red and blue Joy-Con started drifting. I've always loved this game a lot more than everyone else seems to, and getting this shiny new HD version was something I had been hoping for. This game's visuals have aged beautifully, and I think its linear style of gameplay actually complemented Breath of the Wild quite well as the second 3D Zelda game available on Switch. I really enjoyed playing through it again, and it cemented my stance as an unreasonable and nostalgia-blind Skyward Sword defender. I closed out the summer by playing Alba: A Wildlife Adventure, some Need for Speed, and picked up WarioWare Get It Together, which was worth it just to hear Penny's song. September ended with another Nintendo Direct, revealing the first 3D Kirby game and 64 games on the Switch Online expansion pack, a new look at Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, and also the announcement of announcements for Smash Ultimate and Animal Crossing. Sora ended up being the final Smash fighter, and New Horizons got its own dedicated Direct that had a whole bunch of cool updates that I didn't really get into as I was pretty checked out of the game by then. Although seeing Cap'n again brought me much joy. Strangely, the most entertaining part of all these announcements was the reveal of the voice cast for the upcoming Mario movie. Then I did something I thought I'd never do. I bought Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Long story short, this game ended up shifting my views on what types of games I could enjoy, and broke down a lot of my negative opinions I had about JRPGs. I was shocked by how incredible the soundtrack was, the story had me invested in all its confusing twists and turns from beginning to end, and all of a sudden I'd become a Xenoblade fan. This is one of the all-time greatest Nintendo games for me. In the middle of my Xenoblade playthrough, Metroid Dread came out, which was the perfect modernization of the Metroid formula with smooth and satisfying gameplay and plenty of amazing moments for Samus. This ended up being my pick for Game of the Year, which I still stand by. Doing my 2D Metroid homework before playing this game definitely made it even more enjoyable for me. And then I spent the rest of the year playing a few cool indies, Mario Party Superstars, which was actually my first time owning a Mario Party game, and a dash of New Horizons updates here and there. I also hit 20k subscribers on YouTube, which was mostly due to my videos about Wii Sports, specifically one where I imagined what a Switch Sports Resort could look like. But realistically, Wii Sports will never come to the Switch. Looking back, I kind of went crazy this year and bought almost every single major Nintendo release, and while I enjoyed most of them, there were definitely a few in there that I could have skipped. But between Metroid and Xenoblade, my gaming tastes expanded a lot this year, which made me enjoy my time with the Switch even more. Now on to the year where the sequel to Breath of the Wild will 100% be released without any delays. This year began with finishing up Xenoblade after an 80-hour journey, cementing this game as one of my all-time favorites. Then in late January, Pokemon Legends Arceus released, which I decided to buy after it got surprisingly solid reviews online. Realistically, I probably shouldn't have bought a third Pokemon game on Switch after the first two left me feeling pretty lukewarm, but thankfully I enjoyed this game a lot more than I was expecting to. All it took for me to finally get into a Pokemon game was for it to play nothing like a traditional Pokemon game. But as much as I enjoyed running around catching Pokemon and exploring, I still think this game has a lot of problems. The trademark lack of polish this series is so well known for shows up more times than I would have liked, especially in the story and dungeons. But I'd still say I enjoyed Legends Arceus overall, and I still think it's the best Pokemon game on this console. Now that the holy cycle of Nintendo Directs had been restored, February brought another new one on the 9th. This Direct was absolutely packed with reveals. There was a new Mario Strikers, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Earthbound on Switch Online, and new looks at Splatoon 3 and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But one announcement overshadowed all the others for me. Nintendo Switch Sports actually became a reality. The first 10 seconds of this trailer made me the happiest person in the world, and then my high hopes were quickly shattered once these corporate-looking avatars appeared on screen and I realized that Woohoo Island was nowhere to be seen. Switch Sports became an obsession for me after that, and I followed every update and piece of news about the game that I could find. Trying to figure out if this game was going to be good or not was a case that I had to crack. Later that month, Nintendo held an online playtest for the game, which I enjoyed a lot, but I wasn't able to talk about it publicly because Nintendo restricted sharing any details for some reason. Late March brought the first wave of the Mario Kart Booster Course Pass, which was pretty rough visually but was still a ton of fun and had some great new music tracks. Ninja Hideaway and Shroom Ridge are both bangers. Just a week later I picked up Forgotten Land, which was a terrific first 3D adventure for Kirby. It's one of the best platformers on Switch with plenty of memorable levels and a whole lot of charm. I ended up getting 100% completion in this game and I enjoyed every minute of it. Then the sequel to Breath of the Wild got delayed into next year, and Xenoblade 3 got reverse delayed and moved up to late July instead of September, likely switching places with Splatoon 3. Then that fateful day in late April arrived, and Nintendo Switch Sports broke into my house, smashed my TV, set my Switch on fire, killed my hopes and dreams, and dropped the bomb on Woohoo Island. I actually thought it was fine despite all that though, and I had a lot of fun with it in its early hours. It was no Wii Sports Resort, but playing sports online against other people was really fun. I enjoyed playing this game and making videos about it, and the larger sense of disappointment I feel towards the game now didn't really set in until a few months later. An overall lack of charm, the dreaded free update model, no single-player content, and drip-feeding cosmetic items all brought this otherwise solid Wii Sports game down a lot. I say all of this as if I didn't put over 80 hours into this game. I then dove into the Future Redeem side mode of the original Xenoblade, which was a nice change of pace and unsurprisingly had stellar music. I also played the first Ace Attorney game and absolutely loved it. Early June brought the release of Mario Strikers Battle League, which I got at full price and is probably the Switch game I regret buying the most. This game is bizarre, because in terms of animation and polish it's much better than Super Rush, but there is just nothing to do in this game at all. I beat the barebones single-player cup mode in less than an hour, and then I guess you're just supposed to play online matches forever. I love Strikers Charged on Wii so much, so Battle League's overly sanitized and boring gameplay was a huge disappointment to me. Nintendo ended up not doing their usual big direct during this time since E3 died, so they held a mini partner showcase instead. The biggest reveal was the Persona games coming to Switch, which sparked my interest in playing the game based on that one Smash DLC fighter. In late July I picked up Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and as a relatively recent convert to the Xenoblade fandom it was incredibly exciting to play a new entry in the series on day one. I had spent the previous few months playing through Xenoblade 2 when I wasn't playing Switch Sports, which I enjoyed overall, but there were a few things in that game that I really didn't like. So I was hoping Xenoblade 3 would be sort of a middle ground between 1 and 2, and that's pretty much exactly what it ended up doing for me. This game is staggering in terms of scale, with so much to see and a story jam-packed with epic moments. It's trying to do 1,000 different things at once, which can be kind of overwhelming and confusing at times, but it still manages to be a great experience overall. While not quite as impactful as the original for me personally, I still loved my playthrough of this game that lasted through most of August. Later in the month, Splatoon 3 got a Splatfest World Premiere demo just like Splatoon 2 did in 2017, which was so much fun to be a part of. These demos have such a special atmosphere to them. Getting a sneak peek at what's in store for the next Splatoon game alongside the community was such a blast, and I didn't want it to end. There was a lot of talk during this time about how this game wasn't doing enough to justify its existence, but I was pretty impressed by just how different it felt. The new lobby system alone was such a huge change, and I loved exploring the new hub world and seeing Deep Cut's Splatfest debut. A few weeks later, the full game was released, and it was a strangely emotional experience to say goodbye to Splatoon 2, the game that I'd been playing almost non-stop since I got my Switch. It's always felt like this series was growing up alongside me, and Splatoon 3 continued that trend. Of course, this game dominated my next few months, and ended up being my personal game of the year. While it might be my least favorite Splatoon in terms of aesthetics and identity, I can't deny that it's probably the best one in terms of gameplay and polish. The map design and catalog system frustrated me a lot, but the story mode and soundtrack pretty much made up for that. I never ended up getting as into ranked battles in this game as I did in Splatoon 2, which is partly because of the new unified ranking system that started me out at A+ rank on day 1, and also because I'd already played so much of the second game and there were no new modes to pull me in. Still a fantastic game at the end of the day though, and it proved to me why Splatoon is one of my all-time favorite gaming franchises. I also got the Splatoon 3 themed Pro Controller, since my original Pro Controller started drifting. Nintendo had some serious stick drift issues this generation. September means Nintendo Direct time, and this one showed off a new Fire Emblem, a Kirby remaster, Pikmin 4 actually got announced after all those years, and the sequel to Breath of the Wild finally got a name and a release date with a ridiculously short trailer. This Direct also had a lot of farming games which quickly became a meme. Zelda and Pikmin were obviously the two big highlights. A month later, the first trailer for the Mario movie was shown off, which looked surprisingly good aside from Chris Pratt's voice. In late October, I picked up Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Persona 5 Royal, but I didn't really play either of them until December because of Splatoon 3 and making videos for the Wii U's 10th anniversary. I spent the last month of the year enjoying the third wave of the Booster Course Pass, which they managed to time perfectly with the release of Merry Mountain around Christmas time, beating Sparks of Hope, which was a great follow-up to the original with a super underappreciated soundtrack, playing Lil Gator Game, also known as the unofficial sequel to A Short Hike, and started Persona 5 Royal, which kind of blew my mind and took over my life. I also really enjoyed not playing Scarlet and Violet as there was no way I was buying those games at full price. Overall, this was a really great year for the Switch. Splatoon, Xenoblade, Kirby, Pokemon, and the emotional rollercoaster that was Switch Sports. This year felt like Nintendo was gaining momentum instead of losing it, as there was always something new and exciting to play. " 2023 began with Persona 5 Royal becoming the only thing I played for an entire month, and it was beautiful. This is one of those games I wish I could play again for the first time. Its unique style of being both a time management social sim and a dungeon crawling turn-based RPG really clicked with me, and its terrific soundtrack and story didn't hurt either. After falling in love with both a Xenoblade and a Persona game, my time as an RPG dismisser had officially ended. A Nintendo Direct was announced for February 8th, and ended up showing more Pikmin 4, teasing DLC for both Splatoon and Xenoblade, putting Game Boy games on NSO, shadow dropping a gorgeous Metroid Prime remaster, and ending with another trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. As cool as the Zelda trailer was, this was the fourth time that this game acted as the big final reveal of a Nintendo Direct, which was a bit much. The Metroid Prime reveal was the most exciting for me, as I had just finished playing through the trilogy on Wii and absolutely loved it, so seeing the first one brought back in such a glorious fashion was amazing. I immediately bought it and was blown away by how visually impressive the remaster looked. I still think this is the single best looking game on the Switch. In March, Inkopolis Plaza returned to Splatoon 3, the Booster Course Pass Wave 4 started adding new characters which was cool, Tears of the Kingdom got a gameplay showcase, and I finally finished Persona 5. On April 5th, the Super Mario Bros. Movie released in the US, and it was pretty fun. It impressed me in a lot of ways and annoyed me in a lot of ways as well, but it probably ended up being about as good as a Mario movie made by Illumination could have been. It felt like a theme park ride that was created with a whole lot of love for Nintendo, and while it wasn't very narratively interesting or emotionally resonant for me at all, it probably wasn't super realistic to expect the Mario movie to be very deep. Just a short time after that, the final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom was released, which raised my hype levels out of the stratosphere. It felt exactly like the Breath of the Wild trailer from the January 2017 presentation, only this time the story seemed much more active and less like it all took place in memories. I mean, there's no way I would fall for the same trick twice. In late April, the big DLC expansion for Xenoblade 3 came out, which I enjoyed even more than the base game in some ways. I think I like Matthew as a character more than Noah, and seeing Shulk and Rex again was great. In the weeks leading up to Tears of the Kingdom's release, I ended up finally upgrading from my 2017 Switch to the Zelda Switch OLED. The larger and more vibrant screen was actually a pretty huge difference in person, and it pushed me to play in handheld mode more often, although I still rarely did, to be honest. Then I finished Future Redeemed, played through the second Ace Attorney game, and enjoyed the Triforce Splatfest in Splatoon 3. May 12th finally arrived, and after almost 4 years of anticipation and waiting, I got to play the sequel to my favorite game of all time. Tears of the Kingdom is phenomenal, and in many ways it felt like I was playing my new favorite game of all time since it surpassed Breath of the Wild in certain areas. Link's new abilities were incredible, Hyrule felt fresh and exciting to explore again, and the story seemed dark and mysterious after the opening hours. It was everything I wanted it to be, and then the cracks started to show. Now I'm not going to start ripping into this game like it's the worst thing to ever happen to the Zelda series, but I do think this game has some big issues. After a quick pass over all the major landmarks of Hyrule in the first 20 hours or so, the map begins to feel pretty uninteresting. The Sky Islands are mostly empty, and the depths are just a whole lot of open space with only one visual theme and music track. The story ended up keeping the memory format from Breath of the Wild, only now it felt even more disjointed and unrelated. But there's also so much great stuff here. The level of freedom and experimentation is unprecedented. I loved playing through this game, and the incredible final moments ended on such a great high point, but I couldn't really find the motivation to find every shrine or reach every light route. My expectations were extremely high going into this game, and I really should have known that nothing would feel quite as special to me as Breath of the Wild did back in 2017. The years of hype and theories sure didn't help either. It's a great game that taught me a lot about how to approach big new game releases in the future, and I've already talked about why I personally prefer the calmer atmosphere of the original. Then I played Deltarune. I had played Undertale on my Xbox the year prior, and I somehow loved the first 2 chapters of Deltarune even more, and I'm still eagerly awaiting the releases of chapters 3 and 4. Early June brought another Nintendo Direct, revealing a Mario RPG remake, Princess Peach Showtime, a port of Luigi's Mansion 2, WarioWare Move It, and a new creative 2D Mario game that wasn't a part of the new Super Mario Bros. Series. This Direct definitely felt like Nintendo was trying to make the most out of all the momentum the Mario movie created for the brand, and Wonder looked like a delightful new take on classic 2D Mario. Later on in July, Pikmin 4 descended from the heavens and blessed us with its presence. Like with the 2D Metroid games, I played through all of the Pikmin games in preparation for Pikmin 4, which once again made this game feel so much more impressive. I was a huge fan of the radically different camera angle, and OG was such a great way to streamline the strategic gameplay. I spent the next month collecting every treasure and exploring every cave, and I honestly think this game rivals Tears of the Kingdom in terms of quality. After a Mario Wonder dedicated Direct in August and more time spent playing Splatoon 3 and Tears of the Kingdom, the September Nintendo Direct arrived. The side order DLC for Splatoon looked great, F-Zero 99 looked pretty cool, Diddy Kong finally joined the Mario Kart 8 roster, and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door getting a remake was such a huge moment. A Thousand Year Door remake was one of those things that fans had been begging for years, so of course the reactions to this reveal were great.
This is a fool! This is a...
It didn't excite me too much when it was first revealed, but once I actually got to play F-Zero 99, I instantly got hooked. This easily became my favorite of the 99 style games, and I think it holds up as just a great game in general. I enjoyed its high-octane racing so much that I went back and played through every F-Zero game, finally discovering why people keep asking for this series to come back. By the time I was done with that, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was just around the corner, and unsurprisingly it was fantastic once I got my hands on it. Playing a 2D Mario game that felt so fresh and new seemed like a fever dream, but in the best way possible. Finally, Mario's side-scrolling games felt as creative as his 3D ones. This was also the first game for Mario's new voice actor, Kevin Afghani, meaning Charles Martinet wouldn't be voicing the character for the first time in over 27 years, which felt like the end of an era. Then I played through the third Ace Attorney game, which is probably my favorite one. This game had some of the best twists I'd ever experienced in any piece of media, and it felt like the perfect ending to the original trilogy. In November, Miyamoto casually announced a Zelda movie on Twitter, and I bought the Super Mario RPG remake, which I played a few hours of but still haven't gone back to yet. Not because I didn't like it though, as there's plenty to love here. And the last few games I played in 2023 were Sea of Stars, the original Paper Mario on Switch Online, the first few hours of Persona 4 Golden, a few stages of We Love Katamari Damacy, and a whole bunch of Suika game. This stupid fruit game kept me in a mental prison until I was able to make a watermelon. The Booster Course Pass also wrapped up around this time, and it ended up being pretty solid overall with just way too many city tracks. The way they released it in waves was cool because it let each track shine more than they would have otherwise, and announcing returning courses and new characters kind of became the replacement for new Smash Fighter reveals. It's still kind of weird that the Switch never got its own full Mario Kart game, but this is close enough I guess. 2023 having a new Zelda, Mario, Pikmin, kind of a new F-Zero, and a Mario movie was super impressive. This was probably the closest Nintendo came to reaching the heights of 2017 in terms of new game releases. And it was kind of the last full year for the Switch since it seems like most of their development focus shifted over to the next generation after this year. It sort of felt like the grand finale for this console. In 2024, it was pretty clear that the Switch was winding down, as discussion about the next console loomed over everything, and most of Nintendo's first-party offerings were handled by their development partners instead of being made in-house. For the second time in a row, the first month of my year was dominated by a Persona game, this time being Persona 4 Golden. I binged this game hard, zooming through the story and dungeons because of how much I was enjoying it. And while I think I prefer 5 overall, this game is still a fantastic experience that helped me through a rough month. And holy crap does this game have a good soundtrack. Nintendo held a partner showcase direct in early February, where the most interesting reveal to me was a new Endless Ocean game, although it looked kind of rough in some places. Then the side order DLC for Splatoon 3 dropped, and I beat it the same night it came out. This expansion has an incredibly unique atmosphere that I loved, and its roguelite structure fits Splatoon surprisingly well, but it didn't have nearly the same impact on me that the Octo expansion did. It was great to see Pearl and Marina in the spotlight again though, and seeing Deadfish join the crew was cool too. I should probably go back and play this one some more, because I've really only put a few hours into it. It wasn't everything I wanted it to be, but I'll never complain about the Splatoon series trying to pull off creative and risky new ideas. I spent most of March and April playing through Crosscode, which easily became one of my favorite indies on the Switch. I had heard so many great things about this game for a while, and it still managed to surpass my expectations. The music in this game is on the same level as Celeste and Stardew Valley, and the story goes places I wasn't expecting but totally loved. And now I've become the 97th YouTuber that tells you should play Crosscode. Then I played another great indie game, Animal Well. This game has so many great moments of discovery and some really intense encounters with the creatures of this mysterious world. I think I probably only experienced like half of what this game has to offer by the time I reached the credits. I also started Astral Chain, and I know I'm 5 years late to the party, but did you know this game is pretty good? I grew to really love Astral Chain by the time I finished it later in the year. Its stylish action and unique atmosphere kept me really engaged, and I already want to replay it. I'm honestly surprised this game isn't talked about more, as it's probably one of my favorites on the whole console. In early May, the successor to the Nintendo Switch was half announced on Twitter, with the president of Nintendo confirming that it would be fully revealed within the fiscal year, along with saying that there would be a Nintendo Direct in June. This was a really smart move, as it immediately calmed the Switch 2 rumor storm and let everyone have the correct expectations for the June Direct. The long-awaited Thousand Year Door remake arrived in May, so I could finally find out why everyone loves this game so much. It immediately impressed me with its visuals and writing, and the updated music tracks are all terrific. After years of hearing that this was one of the greatest Nintendo games of all time, it took me a while to settle into what this game actually was away from all the high expectations. But once I reached the credits, I managed to find my own love and appreciation for what this game is. Possibly the last proper Nintendo Direct focused only on the original Switch happened on June 18th, and I wasn't expecting much. The Switch was slowing down, and I thought this Direct would just be a few ports and remasters. However, this presentation was absolutely amazing, showing off a new Mario and Luigi game, Mario Party Jamboree, a new 2D Zelda game starring the princess herself, and Metroid Prime 4 showing up over 7 years after it was initially announced. I think this genuinely might be one of the strongest Directs from this entire generation, and it came at a time when no one was expecting it. Seeing Prime 4 after 7 years of jokes about it never showing up felt unreal, and most people seemed to think it would be a cross-gen title with the next console in 2025, myself included. This Direct felt like the perfect send-off for a system that had some of the best reveals in all of gaming. Nintendo Switch Sports got a basketball update in July, which was fine. Not horrible, but not nearly as good as it used to be in Resort. And I'm just now realizing I forgot to talk about the golf update back in 2022, which pretty much sums up all my thoughts on it. In August, I finally finished Ring Fit Adventure, and spent most of my time playing Natsumon 20th Century Kid, which is a game that takes place during August exclusively, so that was perfect. There was a very enjoyable Nintendo Museum Direct in late August, a partner showcase and indie Direct combined together which sparked a whole lot of Switch 2 talk, and my newfound Monster Hunter addiction found its way onto the Switch with Monster Hunter Stories 2. In September, Splatoon 3 had its version of the Final Fest, now titled the Grand Festival. This event was far and away the greatest Splatfest in Splatoon history, with a unique hub world to explore and some incredible performances from the idols of all 3 games. It actually felt like I was at a music festival while this was going on, and even though Team Present wasn't able to win, this quickly became one of my favorite memories with the Splatoon series. This festival felt not only like a grand goodbye to Splatoon 3 as a game, but also to the entire Splatoon trilogy up to that point. It felt like the finale to the era of Nintendo that started for me way back on the Wii U with the original Splatoon, and it's what initially got me thinking about all the time I spent with this console. Hearing all the songs I'd become so familiar with performed in such a spectacular way made me feel super nostalgic and sentimental. I'd kind of fallen off of Splatoon 3 throughout 2023 and 2024, but the Grand Festival pulled me right back in and solidified Splatoon as the through line that's been with me this whole time. So yeah, I kind of liked this event. Then The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was released, and playing through a brand new 2D Zelda game after all these years felt fantastic. This game did a solid job at combining the 2 different styles of Zelda, and I thoroughly enjoyed its dungeons, story, and soundtrack. A Link Between Worlds is still the king of 2D Zelda though, as something about this game just didn't click with me in the way that so many other Zelda games have. Super Mario Party Jamboree was the next big Nintendo release, and I ended up having a blast with this game. This is one of the best party games on Switch, and I enjoyed it even more than Superstars thanks to its larger amount of content and creativity. Soon after that, Nintendo suddenly revealed that Xenoblade Chronicles X would be getting a Switch port, one of the final Wii U ports of the generation. This was actually the Xenoblade game that initially got me into the series back on Wii U, so it was great to see it finally get a second chance with some new bonus content as well. But that wasn't the most exciting announcement of the month for me, as just one day later Nintendo announced the Nintendo Music app, which was something I'd been wanting for years. As dumb as this sounds, this was probably my favorite announcement of the whole year, as I obsessively listened to Nintendo soundtracks and finally having an official place to enjoy them was so great. The app has its problems, of course, but it ended up having a pretty steady stream of new albums with one dropping every week. I never would have guessed that Nintendo would finally make an app that I actually enjoy and use semi-consistently in my daily life. And just a few days after that, Furukawa revealed in a tweet that the successor to the Nintendo Switch would be backwards compatible with current Switch games, which was great to have confirmed. I feel like most people already assumed this would happen, but it was nice to know for sure. The slow drip feed of Switch 2 information was starting to build some serious hype for the next generation of Nintendo. Next up was Mario and Luigi Brothership, which I didn't end up liking as much as I wanted to. As my first time playing a game from this series, it was hard for me to tell if the things I didn't like were Brothership-specific problems, or if the Mario and Luigi series as a whole just doesn't vibe with me. After some time passed and more criticism of the game popped up, it seemed like other people experienced similar issues to me, in terms of the pacing, writing, structure, and side quests. It's a shame that the big comeback for this franchise wasn't as great as many wanted it to be, but it's not a terrible train wreck or anything. Just pretty underwhelming, at least in my opinion. I spent the rest of the year listening to the Nintendo Music app, playing a whole bunch of Zelda games for a video I was working on, and the channel passed 50,000 subscribers in mid-December, which felt unreal. And with that, the last full year of the original Nintendo Switch came to a close. "2025 started with a barrage of Switch 2 leaks and rumors, with pictures of the motherboard coming out, images of the Joy-Cons leaking, and third-party manufacturers jumping the gun on trying to reveal the console before Nintendo did. Then all the big leakers started saying that Thursday, January 16th would be the big day it officially gets revealed, which definitely isn't actually going to happen. I mean... Oh, alright, there it is. This reveal is pretty straightforward, which is somewhat unusual for Nintendo. I think it gets the job done and clearly shows off what's new about the console, but it does feel a little corporate. The last time Nintendo tried to market a sequel system, it didn't go very well, so I can understand them wanting to make things as simple as possible this time around. The 3DS and Wii U are two of my favorite Nintendo consoles, because they built on what came before with fun new features and lots of personality, ending up as sort of the ultimate versions of the originals. So I think there's a lot of potential with the Switch 2 to do something similar. And while the name is a bit strange, it definitely ensures that everyone is on the same page about what this console is. And of course, seeing a glimpse of the first brand new Mario Kart in over a decade is super exciting, and it's a smart move to focus on it since Deluxe was such a massive success. While this reveal isn't as impactful as the original Switches, I don't know that it even could have been. The energy shift that happened with that initial Switch reveal trailer is something that couldn't happen in the same way today since the company is in such a good spot, and there's no reason to try and reinvent the wheel since the Switch ended up being one of the highest selling consoles in history. Overall, I think it's still a little too early to make any solid judgments about the Switch 2. I think it could end up being something really great, and I hope it's able to be a worthy follow-up. And with that, the sun has officially set on the original Nintendo Switch, and a new generation of Nintendo is about to begin. During the rest of January and into February, I spent most of my time playing Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which I thoroughly enjoyed playing through. And then, well, I started working on this video. To be honest, I've been chipping away at this project for the past few months now, but this is the point where I've run out of stories to tell and opinions to share about the Switch. I've finally caught up to the present, or at least the present at the time of making this video. The big April Switch 2 Direct is fast approaching, but that's going to be part of a different story. As for the original Switch, this is pretty much the end. I'm sure it'll get a few games here and there like the 3DS did back in 2017, and it's still not clear if Prime 4 will be cross-gen or not, but it's likely that the Switch is not going to be the main focus anymore. I'm sure there are a ton of things I forgot to include in this video, but I covered most of what I personally really cared about. I didn't talk about every big game I played over the past 8 years, as I do actually play games on other consoles too, but the majority of my favorites were on the Switch. Of course, I want to hear your personal experiences with this console as well, so leave a comment sharing some of your favorite Switch memories. And hey, maybe I'll do this again in another 8 years at the end of the Switch 2's lifespan. I'll be, like, old by then. Looking back, it's incredibly impressive how the Switch managed to have such a steady stream of high-quality game releases throughout pretty much its entire life. I think you can easily make the argument that the Switch's library of games is one of the all-time greatest. Despite my criticisms of the console, like its bland menu design that lacks the charm and personality of previous systems, It's still a fantastic addition to Nintendo's long history of great gaming machines. Its hybrid design feels like the perfect intersection of Nintendo's past consoles, and the fact that it's been so successful while still being a somewhat underpowered tablet is a testament to the importance of fun above all else. Playing all of these terrific games and tuning into each Nintendo Direct has been an absolute blast, and I owe pretty much all of the success I've found on YouTube to the momentum that this console created. If it isn't clear by now, the Nintendo Switch means a lot to me. Even though there are plenty of parts of the Wii U generation that I wish weren't left behind, seeing Nintendo launch into such an exciting new direction over the past 8 years has been an incredible ride. This is the biggest video I've ever made, and I feel like I only scratched the surface of every topic I mentioned. I'm a bit scared that this whole retrospective will end up being as wide as an ocean but as deep as a puddle, since I didn't really talk in depth about any one game or moment as there was just so much to cover. But I really enjoyed revisiting my timeline with this console, and it sort of helped me recenter myself before the next generation begins. I don't know that I'll ever be this involved with a console throughout its entire lifespan ever again. I sort of feel like the heights of my Nintendo fandom were reached during the Switch's lifespan, as it released during the perfect time in my teenage years that allowed it to completely dominate my life. Of course, I'm still super excited for the Switch too, but I guess the stakes just don't feel as high anymore. It's honestly kind of strange that I cared so much about this video game company, but over the past few years I've often needed something simple and fun to grasp onto when things get overwhelming, and I'm grateful that the Switch was able to give me that. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that as one story comes to an end, another is just beginning. Now it's time for the sun to rise on a new generation of Nintendo, and with it comes the chance to create new memories and experiences that we'll look back on fondly one day many years from now. So let's make sure we have a lot to talk about once we get there.